which my question was to the Health and Wellbeing Board, which was recent Commission reports and guidance from government are showing the need for social housing. The lack of it is featuring high as the cause of many physical and mental illnesses. Can the Health and Wellbeing Board support a plan to build social homes and reduce the burden on local services, including the NHS? And my supplementary to them outline the physical and mental health issues that the city faces and the country faces. And really, it was to get their support, because they're almost at the opposite end of a fight with the housing board, with the housing committee, because the Health and Wellbeing Board need houses for a completely different reason than the housing committee does. You want houses to house people when they're desperate to get houses to prevent, mental illness, health, domestic abuse, violence, malnutrition, queues at food banks. So that was my question. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Jim, and thanks for highlighting these issues as ever. As you know, the question was addressed by the Health and Wellbeing Board on the 2nd of November. However, I can respond. The Council are committed to providing additional affordable homes, both through our corporate plan and the Housing Committee work plan. The Council's priority is delivery of additional council homes as well as other affordable homes, usually via registered providers, housing associations. We have a total of 466 additional council homes projected for delivery between 2019 and 2023. We will look to see if we can increase this number in this year's budget, due to be considered by committee in January next year. 144 additional council homes were provided last year. That's 2020-21. We have a total of 1,100 additional affordable homes, usually via registered providers, projected for delivery over the same 4-year period, 2019 to 23. That will be 379 homes for rent and 721 for shared ownership. 48 additional affordable homes were delivered last year by registered providers. That compares with our 144. Updates on progress with the delivery of new council homes and other affordable homes are reported to resident area panels and the Housing Committee on a quarterly basis. We have also reported that to Housing Committee on successful bids for government funding for accommodation and support for rough sleepers, including a significant expansion of the Housing First homes, offering accommodation and support for clients with multiple and complex needs. We have purchased 30 Housing First homes and have funding to purchase a further 30 homes for housing-led support. We also have funding for an additional 30 homes to be leased for a rapid rehousing scheme. Your question mentions a plan to build social homes. We are approached with many such initiatives and would suggest that you share any business case with housing colleagues in order that we can assess the commissioning needs and needs the proposal seeks to meet. The alignment to the city plan in terms of any proposed sites and the proposed management and support arrangements for any homes. The Housing Committee is responsible, not the Health and Wellbeing Board, for increasing the supply of affordable housing in the city. But as a key corporate priority, it is a policy supported by all corporate decision-making bodies, including the Health and Wellbeing Board. It is worth noting that the way the government defines social rents currently has changed, and the new social rent formula leads to considerably higher rents than the traditional council social rents. That's rather a lot, Jim, but do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do. So today you're going to discuss the Moss Coombe build. I live there. In fact, I'm 200 yards away from that potential build. Moss Coombe, for those of you who don't understand, a lot of our it's a working community. At night, there's no parking spaces, there's cars everywhere. But in the morning, when we leave for work, there's plenty of space. Not only cars left there, or disabled cars or night shift workers. Social rent has allowed this. This new build must be social or as close to it as we can make it. My deputation letter will ask for a new rent review so it can play a part in turning the working poverty in this city round. Can I ask this committee to live up to the Kerslake Commission's report and recommendations and your own manifestos and promises and build social homes? Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And as you say, there's a deputation later, so I won't duplicate too much the response to that, but I will say that there is a commitment in the joint programme on housing and homelessness to achieve the maximum number of social, traditional social council rent levels and living rents, which are rents that are now similar to what the government calls social rents. So that commitment is there. We monitor it in our housing committee reports and have made progress, but I would agree that the more progress we can make, the better. I won't preempt the response to the deputation, but I will just add in terms of Molescombe that you can rest assured that the Housing Member Supply Board, and which with Jill, Teresa, Cyril and Mary on it, are looking at options to achieve as many low rents as is possible and access government grant to do that. The rents are unlikely, or it's almost certain to be as low as the traditional council social rents, but there could be some of them could be a lot lower than most of the new council housing that's been built in the last few years. So thanks very much for your question, Janet, and I guess we'll be speaking again with the deputation. So next we have Jackie Strube and Ian McIntyre from Hanover Action.
Hello, it's Jackie Strube here. Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes, thanks, Jackie.
Yes, it is just me, not Ian. Yeah. So my question is, Hanover Action welcomed the budget amendment in 2020 to create a 2.6 million warmer homes budget and its subsequent doubling to an investment of £5.2 million in 21-22 for support towards the council's ambitious carbon neutral 2030 goal. We are concerned to read in the report Carbon Reduction in Housing at Housing Committee that only up to £400,000 of this budget is likely to be spent in 21-22. Given we are facing a climate emergency, we believe that using this resource to help provide warmer homes with a lower carbon footprint should be a priority, and we ask that the committee explain the delay and provide members of the public with a timetable setting the expected stages up to an estimated date by which the budget will be fully spent.
Thank you for your question, Jackie, and I appreciate the urgency and the need to spend the budget. So thank you for updating on the Greening Hanover Homes project. The recommended allocation of 400,000 of Warm Homes funding to support the Warm Safe Homes grants is a direct and timely response to the current pressure on energy bills caused by rising wholesale energy prices and support for vulnerable households over the winter months. This funding represents the first phase of the wider Warmer Homes programme that will be planned over coming months with external support to design the scheme and outline delivery options. As this capacity and expertise does not exist within the council, the resources to buy in the expertise were provided in a previous budget, and it is a priority to get on with this work. So I'll say that again, it is a priority to get on with this work. The timetable for delivery will be based on the recommendations of this advice, taking into account both policy decisions for the council and any required procurement of delivery partners. We recognise the urgent need to deliver on the Warmer Homes spend, and we will provide a detailed timetable early next year. So thank you for your question, Jackie. Do you have a supplementary or follow-up question?
Yes, thank you for that, Chair. It was, I just wondered, have the consultants been appointed who are going to manage this programme for the council, or is this all part of a procurement process?
The details set out in the report indicate that the wider programme has not reached the stage of consultants being appointed, and which is why we're saying it is an urgent priority to get on with it. The what is in place is the 400,000 up to 400,000 funding for warm safe homes grants, which is assuming the decision of the committee is supported today. That will be progressing for the rest of this year. So thanks, Jackie, and I'm sorry that I can't give you more heartening news, but we have indicated that there will be a detailed timetable early next year, and please come back and hound us further if we slip on that, because it is a priority for the whole council to invest in carbon neutral as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much.
Now, I'm aware that Charles was dogged by feedback, so I'm going to go back, hopefully. Is Charles Harrison with us?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can you all hear me?
Loud and clear. So that's
Brilliant.
technically working now. So would you like to ask David Thomas's question first, Charles, and then your own?
I certainly will. Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. This is a question about SWEP. Our severe weather emergency protocol should never be a secret. Please advise how SWEP is meant to work this year. Now there is no public involved and no public notifications, or so is the perception from the city.
Thank you, Charles, for your question. In addition to referring Mr. Thomas or yourself to our responses to previous public questions and supplementary questions on secret, in inverted commas, SWEP Housing Committee on the 18th of November 2020, 20th of January 2021 and the 17th of March 2021, I can advise further as follows. Following the pandemic, we, along with other councils, have had to change the way SWEP is delivered, as we have moved away from shared space type provision due to measures required to control infections and outbreaks. Our commissioned outreach service, who will be working on the streets 7 days a week, is aware of people who are sleeping rough and direct them to the provision we have available. In addition, we ensure our other providers, including First Base Day Centre, are aware of SWEP and can link people attending there and people they know into SWEP. If members of the public see people sleeping rough, we would ask them to report to StreetLink to ensure that they can be found and offered shelter. As advised in previous reports to Housing Committee, the Council will continue to offer accommodation to all verified rough sleepers where this is permissible within the Council's powers. In line with the Homeless Bill of Rights, our aim is to offer accommodation to all verified rough sleepers, whatever the weather, not just when SWEP is triggered. Again, where this is permissible within the Council's powers. Our approach has been successful so far, with Brighton achieving the greatest reduction in rough sleeper numbers of any council outside London last year. So I dread whether we'll be able to sustain this next year, but we'll certainly try. Partly in recognition of our achievement, we have been awarded additional funds to expand our No Set Night Out and off-street offer accommodation to accommodate 80 verified rough sleepers, which we hope will help us sustain our progress despite the ending of everyone in funding from September last year. So obviously we've had less funding for everyone in, but we've been trying to do more since then. Do you have a supplementary question on behalf of David Thomas, Charles?
Yes, yes, thank you for your response, Chair. Yes, I do. We understand from a recent community action group against homeless meeting that the reason why the details of SWEP were not publicised was there was a comment that too many people are using it, which does seem to be a little bit at odds with our city's aspiration to be a city to call home. Now, looking at your website under the how we help rough sleepers in the city, the number of people sleeping, rough sleeping, increased from 16 to 39 between March and September of this year. That is a 144% increase. Now, this all seems to be going the wrong way. I'd just like to have a better understanding of exactly what actions are being taken by the council to deal with this problem, which seems to be, for people on the ground, seems to be becoming more of a problem rather than being something which has been resolved.
I really hope that it isn't becoming more of a problem and won't become more of a problem, Charles. And the problem with comparing the numbers in what they're called spotlight counts, which do fluctuate, and at one point was as low as 9, is that there is a seasonal variation, and that there are higher numbers in the summer months and then lower numbers later. So what we really need to do is compare the trend in numbers that are found rough sleeping from sort of like June one year to June the next year. It has been difficult, as I think I alluded to, note that the everyone in policy has been and funding for it has been ended. Nevertheless, we are, seeking to sustain our offer of housing to all verified rough sleepers in line with the Homeless Bill of Rights. The tests will come when the figures are published for the November count, and the November count that we have undertaken was a more extensive count than the previous November. So it won't be a perfect comparison because the previous November was in the pandemic, it was a smaller area, and it was combined with an estimate. But it will, that's what we'll need to compare the results there and see the progress that is or isn't being made. Also, we need to see the impact of the facilities that I referred to, the No Second Night Out and the off-street offer, both of which were not fully mobilised by the time that we've done the most recent count, but are virtually fully mobilised now. So as well as having that extra capacity, we need to make sure that we move people on. So we are monitoring this through the Homeless Reduction Board. We're also trying to deal with large numbers of an increased number of duty housing cases, and we're monitoring, trying to reduce that because the cost to the council is quite significant. So it's a bit of a long response, Charles, but hopefully that helps. Would you like to ask your next question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, my next question is about council housing. The recent Kerslake report highlighted that poor housing has wide-ranging impacts, making significant demands on many council departments and support organisations. It also called for an increase in the supply of social housing. However, the national supply of suitable social housing falls well short of the 90,000 new homes at social rent needed every year, as called for in the UK government Building More Social Housing report. What progress has the council made in achieving its target to build more new council homes and in reducing the unit build cost towards the 167,000 average cost per unit for the South East region, as identified in the UK government consultation Use of Receipts from Right to Buy Sales. Now, I appreciate this is going to be covered later on in the meeting. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but perhaps you I look forward to your response. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Charles, for your question. I think we've duplicated in some of the other responses anyway. But I'll read out the response. There have been 271 additional council homes delivered through the New Homes to Neighbourhoods, Hidden Homes and Home Purchase Programme since May 2019, which is pretty good, I think, given that there's been a pandemic as well. There are a further 246 new council homes currently on site and targeted through the Home Purchase Programme to be delivered by May 2023. A number of additional homes are currently being progressed, including the Homes for Brighton and Hove projects, which are on site in Portslade and Coldine, with 346 affordable homes, over half of which to be will be council rented, and at rents considerably lower. Just to refer to the previous questions, rents pretty much what the government would call social. And the proposals for 211 new homes in Walscombe are being considered by committee today. Taken together, this represents another 387 council homes to add to the 246, suggesting that another 633 additional council homes should be on site and nearing completion over the next 3 years. This is an impressive prospect, considering that the previous administration averaged 51 additional council homes a year. So I think we've got a good record there. The council ensures that all new build costs are viewed by independent specialists to ensure value for money. There are a number of issues that affect costs, including general issues with the supply of materials and labour, creating volatility in the construction market, a high specification for new council homes to ensure they are robust and of high quality, which actually saves money in the longer run, high sustainability standards, including low carbon and biodiversity measures, which, whilst these measures are upfront, add to the upfront cost, it is much cheaper to install them in a new home rather than wait until we are faced with expensive retrofitting bills to comply with the higher environmental standards we can expect in the future. The inclusion of high quality public space in many schemes. The constrained nature of sites within the city, resulting in high enabling and abnormal costs, higher construction costs within the city than in the wider area. The COVID-19 pandemic has been a challenging period for the council's new build programme, with particular impact on the pipeline of new projects. Officers are working to ensure all housing supply programmes effectively recover from this difficult period. In order to meaningfully compare build costs, a whole life assessment is needed. That's a bit long, Charles, but thanks for listening. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Chair, for a very detailed response. Yes, I appreciate that our city has made great progress towards increasing the construction of council houses, and also in trying to address the climate crisis. I must admit, I would like to see more passive house or similar neutral energy developments, so that we're not reliant on fossil fuels or heat pumps or whatever. And also, I appreciate there's problems with supply chain. I assume what measures are you taking to look at modern methods of construction, including off-site manufacture, and also do we have an indication of what kind of estimated build cost per unit or per square metre we're anticipating for the Morscombe development? I appreciate that may be covered by confidential matters later on in the meeting.
Well, in terms of there's two questions there, actually, Charles, very sneaky. In terms of the build costs, I wouldn't be able to provide something at this stage, and frankly, it's not clear. But it's important that we, hone in on it, and I know that a lot of efforts have been made to what they call value engineer to reduce these costs. The other part of the question you asked was about the modern methods of construction and the sort of assembly off-site, which we are exploring for a development, and hope to bring something to Housing Committee in the near future. So thank you very much for your question and for all the questions and continued interest in the work. It's really important that we get sort of questions and pushed by community representatives. So moving on to the next aspect bit of the meeting, I believe we have a deputation on the urgent rent review, and this is the spokesperson, Jim Deans.
Thank you, Chair. So my deputation is an urgent rent review. With property rentals costs soaring, rapidly growing councils are forced to spend millions with private landlords to accommodate the growing population. Millions of people trapped in emergency and temporary accommodation. This is set to hit 2 million people by 2030 if we do not act. Malnutrition, drink and drug abuse, domestic abuse and violence, child poverty, and plain old trapped in debt. These are all part of the same crisis. Council setting its own rents at local housing allowance or near trap people in debt. It makes the transition from unemployment to work very difficult. People with disabilities have no option but to live their life on benefits trapped by high rents. The Kerslake Commission report spells out the implications of privatisation. We are having to buy back previously sold council homes, which were sold at a great loss. I have an example of a flat sold under right to buy for £15,000 and recently bought back for £250,000. Under the right to buy, we still lose social rent homes, and people living there could either be students or exploited. We have lots of families living in overcrowded positions, essentially hidden homeless, living from one room, because the standards in the private sector housing is worse than the overcrowding. Include those stuck in high rents, benefits capped. Genuine working families are left with £70 to live off each month, or a single working woman only £10 better off while working a 40-hour week due to our high rent. Third world child drives families and single parents further into debt. We are exploiting the most vulnerable when the system needs to be fairer to keep children away from the poverty line. There needs to be a fairness in council rents. Some people have rent set at social level, yet are high earners. Some council homes have multiple people in the home working, yet still paying one social rent. Meanwhile, some people are on minimum wage but paying local housing allowance level of rent, leaving them trapped in debt or having to use discretionary funds or universal credit just to live. They are trapped. We need a rent review of the council-owned and managed, and even council-owned but leased out to private landlords or trusts and charities, a fairness rent policy, and a scale to match people's earnings. We, the Sound, hereby formally request an urgent rent review, and we would ask also for transparency and a community involvement in this review. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for your deputation, and I have a lot of sympathy with the issues that you're raising. You raise a crucial question of providing truly affordable housing, and rightly point out that so-called affordable rents at local housing allowance levels make work unattractive for low-paid workers. Part of the Housing and Homelessness Joint Programme pledges to maximise new rents at social and living rent levels. And this approach, seeking greater affordability, will be considered as part of a review of how the additional council homes programme addresses need and is funded to do this. This is a complex piece of work. It will take some time, and we'll look at the points that you have raised very, very sort of passionately today. It is worth noting that we are heavily constrained by government subsidy system on making changes to existing rents. However, there is more scope for rent choices on the additional council homes that we achieve in the future. And while we are waiting for this review to be done and reported to a committee, we can, in the meantime, in the HRA capital budget for 22-23, explore increasing the rent reserve provision, which is used to maximise the numbers of additional social rented and 27.5% living wage rented, in other words, living rents, that are achieved under our existing policies. And this is something that we have done in the past. Any reports back to a future housing committee will set out community involvement, and I'm personally happy to discuss with housing coalition members like yourself approaches to maximising affordability. Thank you. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Chair. That was encouraging. So the Labour government, the Labour Party and the Conservative government both have adopted this Kerslake report. It's part of their manifestos, which we're asking them to live up to. This is really important, simply because the Conservative government who are in power now have actually stated there would be £10 billion new pounds, which I would like to see Brighton Hove City Council chase. Let's make this current government put their money where their big mouth is, and see if we can capture some of that money and use it to get as close as we can to a social rent. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Jim. And that is a sort of statement and a question, but basically you're saying, can we get hold of as much government money as possible to get rents as low as possible? And the answer is yes, we will do that. And we are trying really hard with Homes England funding, which we managed to get for the joint venture homes in Portslade and Coldine, which will enable us to achieve lower rents. And we have to actually thank the Housing Association for passing on that funding. But that funding has enabled us to make the rents considerably lower than they would otherwise have been. And certainly, yeah, the short answer is yes, Jim, and fully supportive. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that is the end of the public involvement section. So thank everyone for contributing. And we're now on to issues raised by councillors. We do not have any petitions. We do not have any written questions, though there was one.